Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Hillary Sorensen. I'm the climate biologist at the 1854 Treaty Authority. We are an intertribal natural resource management agency governed by the Bois Forte Band of Chippewa and Grand Portage Band of Lake Superior, Chippewa. We are located in the 1854 treaty ceded territory, which is present day Northeast Minnesota. But I just want to acknowledge that the territories, there are other ceded territories in the Twin Ports region, including the 1842 and 1837 treaty ceded territories as well, home of many Anishinaabe bands. And so today we're going to be hearing from Amanda Jarrett Smith. We're going to be hearing about an update on the governor's climate change subcabinet and current development of a state climate action framework. So we are going to be focused in Minnesota today on some of the climate adaptation planning efforts that have been going on and are continuing for the next several months. Before we get going with that presentation, I'd just like to thank the rest of the planning team groups for putting on these monthly Twin Ports climate conversations. Planning team members include Minnesota and Wisconsin Sea Grant, Minnesota's Lake Superior Coastal Program with the Minnesota DNR, and Northern Institute of Applied Climate Science and the 1854 Treaty Authority. The mission of the Twin Ports Climate Conversations is to aid in improving climate communication skills, to improve sharing of climate change related data, and to motivate and support community-based adaptation, as well as to increase climate change conversations in more sectors and to broaden the impact. As Madison mentioned earlier, we do record these sessions. These will be posted on the Minnesota Sea Grant website. There will be a link put in the chat box so you can listen to any previous recordings. And at the end, we will have some time for some Q&A. And so you can enter your questions into that Q&A box and we'll have some time at the end to address those. And with that, I will introduce our speaker. So I'd like to welcome Amanda Jarrett Smith. She is the Climate and Energy Policy Planner at the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. She does a variety of work related to reducing greenhouse gas emissions, including leading the Clean Cars Minnesota rulemaking, the Volkswagen Settlement Program development, and the Clean Power Plan. Amanda lives in Minneapolis with her hound dog, Tillman. So with that, thanks so much, Amanda, and take it away.
Thanks, Hillary. Yeah, you may see Tillman pop up behind me at some point. She's napping on the chair behind me. Thank you all for having me. I'm going to share my screen here. I actually came back in the day when we were doing things in person and spoke to you all a few years ago about our greenhouse gas emissions inventory. So I'm glad to get the opportunity to talk to you all again. So I think we did the intro, but I'm Amanda, I use she, her pronouns. I'm with the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, and I'm our Climate and Energy Policy Planner there. Let me just get my screen set up. How do I get?
It is showing now.
Yes, I know. I just have videos in front of my notes. There we go. Okay, now I can see my notes. Thanks. So today I'm going to ground us a little bit in climate change, what we're seeing in Minnesota today, greenhouse gas emissions. My personal area of expertise is in emission reductions, more so than adaptation and resiliency, although I know this group talks more perhaps about that area of work. And then some of the work that's going on in Minnesota right now around climate action and how to get involved. So I think I have a few kind of grounding slides for us to just so we know where we're going in these sections, but I'm going to talk a little bit about how climate change is threatening our families, communities, livelihoods, and our environment, that we have emission reduction goals in Minnesota to achieve emission reductions of 80% by 2050, and that we're working to adapt to climate change and decrease disproportionate impacts related to climate change. So to start with a little bit of science and data, it's kind of where I always like to start personally. So my colleagues at the DNR who are climate science experts would like me to start off with some reminders about climate science that kind of inform their work. So Minnesota is unique. It differs from other parts of the US and the world. So when you hear about overall global trends in climate change, those are not necessarily the things that we are seeing here. We need to understand the data and the experience on the ground in our ecosystems and our environment here in Minnesota. Climate science both looks backwards with observations and recorded data, and forwards with projections. And sometimes it's easy to kind of mush those things together, but we need to think about those things distinctly. And then our climate is changing and also goes through normal ups and downs. So we both see trends and climate variations also exist, and those two things don't disprove each other. So I'm going to highlight a few trends. We have a lot of interactive data available on the DNR's website, and there's a link there in the slides. But one of the main trends that we're seeing in Minnesota is that Minnesota is shifting to be warmer and wetter. Each of the 10 combined wettest and warmest years on record have occurred since 1998. We're also seeing that winters are warming faster than summers. So we don't get as many of those really severe cold days and like cold overnight periods as we used to. And this has implications for things that we might need to adapt to, things like invasive species or increased ticks and things like that have partly to do with these less cold winters that we're experiencing. And we're also experiencing more frequent and heavier downpours, so bigger mega rains, and we need to think about how do we manage that water and plan for it. So that's a little bit about the data that we are seeing in terms of climate changes happening in Minnesota today. We also have emission reduction goals in Minnesota to help us reduce our contributions to this global challenge. So back in 2007, the legislature adopted the Next Generation Energy Act, which did a variety of things, but one of the main things that it did was set these goals. So we as a state are supposed to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 15% by 2015, 30% by 2025, and 80% by 2050, all from a 2005 baseline. We missed our 2015 goal. We are not on track for our 2030 goal, and we are also not on track for our 2050 goal. So overall, since 2005, we've only seen about an 8% emission reduction. And we also know that kind of the Next Generation Energy Act was adopted in 2007 based on the best science that we had at that time. But today, the most recent Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change report that has come out says that we need to do even more than the Next Generation Energy Act goals to avoid the most drastic global climate change scenarios. So this data is really grounding us and pushing us forward to what do we do to bend the curve? What do we do to start getting back on the right track towards achieving these goals and even more? Then a little bit about greenhouse gas emissions, because this can kind of inform where we might want to target our efforts and kind of where we might act first. So the biggest emission sector in Minnesota is the transportation sector. And we haven't seen a very large emission reduction in that sector, only about 7% since 2005. Coming close behind that is the electricity generation sector. We've seen very substantial emission reductions in that sector. It's the only sector where we are on track to meet our goals. And it's gone from the biggest sector in Minnesota to now it's our second largest sector. And then kind of rounding off on The top three is our agriculture, forestry, and land use sector, which is a complicated one. It's complicated to quantify and it's complicated to achieve reductions. And so you see a good bit more volatility in that sector. And then, so all of those are going down, although not as much as we might like. In the industrial, residential, and commercial sectors, we are seeing slight increases in emissions. So those are going in the wrong direction. And then waste is kind of a smaller sector. All of this data is available on the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency's website in an interactive form. So you can kind of dig into the subsectors and all sorts of stuff, look at different years and play around with it, which I would encourage you to do if you're interested. So I want to, I think a lot of times I get questions of like, well, what can we even do for these different sectors? And so I want to give some high level thoughts on kind of categories, bodies of work in these different sectors before I move into a little bit more about what we're doing as a state right now. So in transportation, I think of kind of the areas where we can achieve emission reductions in reducing the amount we drive. So biking, walking, rolling, and using transit more. In cleaner technology, so having more efficient vehicles. And then in cleaner fuels, so using electricity or biofuels instead of gasoline or diesel. And then within electricity generation, we're thinking about energy efficiency. So again, kind of reducing the amount that we use, and then having cleaner sources when we are using electricity. So switching to renewables and away from fossil fuels like coal and natural gas. And then as we clean the electricity sector, we have an opportunity to use the electricity to support emission reductions in other sectors. So transitioning away from, for instance, when we're thinking about transportation and electric vehicles, transitioning away from the use of gasoline to a cleaner electricity grid. So as I mentioned before, the agricultural, forestry, and land use sector is a big one for Minnesota, especially since we have such an agricultural state. It's also a more complicated area to find solutions, but it also has a lot of opportunities. Forest regrowth, prairie regrowth have the opportunity to provide significant offsets for emissions, since forests and prairies can act as carbon sinks and storage. And we've found that a lot of agricultural best management practices can also reduce greenhouse gas emissions while also improving soil and water health. And then those kind of three smaller sectors of buildings and industry have some overlapping challenges and also overlapping opportunities. Both of these, or all three of those categories, industrial, residential, and commercial, the emissions are largely have to do with burning fossil fuels in those buildings for heat. So some opportunities for improvements there would be to improve efficiency, to switch to, again, that cleaner electricity. And then in the industrial sector, some sources of emissions in the industrial sector are because of burning fossil fuels, and then some are kind of just processes in the production of materials that emit greenhouse gases. So there's opportunities there for innovation in industrial processes as well. So having grounded ourselves a little bit in climate change in Minnesota and emissions sectors and kind of the opportunities and challenges of those sectors, I want to highlight a few of the key things that are happening in Minnesota right now and in recent years, and then talk a little bit more about how to get involved. So Governor Walz, saw the data that we're not on track to achieve our emission reduction goals. And so one of the things that he did as he entered office was to adopt Executive Order 1937 on climate change, which created a framework for a interagency subcabinet and an advisory council, and directed the state agencies to develop policies and programs and plans to get back on track for those Next Generation Energy Act emission reduction goals, to build resiliency in Minnesota, and to build equity into that work, and to ensure that we're talking to Minnesotans, especially the Minnesotans who are disproportionately impacted by climate change and who may be disproportionately impacted by climate action. So that has informed kind of a One Minnesota vision, One Minnesota climate vision to act on climate. So that executive order established, again, kind of a framework for interagency collaboration. So we have a climate change subcabinet, which is the executive directors and commissioners of 15 agencies and boards and departments. Also established an advisory council on climate change to advise the governor and the subcabinet on climate action. And then underneath the subcabinet, we have developed some mechanisms for the state agencies to work more collaboratively together rather than being quite so siloed in our areas of expertise and our regulatory processes and all of that. So we have teams of senior leaders at these different agencies and boards and departments who meet on a regular basis to coordinate work and kind of an overarching plan for the different agencies. And then we have different sector-based action teams that are developing priorities for climate action for the state in those kind of different sector categories. So there's one on transportation, one on power sector and buildings, one on natural and working lands, one on resiliency, and one on jobs, rattling those off the top of my head. And then we have some cross-sector teams that are helping to kind of coordinate pieces. So we have a tribal coordination team, and we have an engagement coordination team and a legislative coordination team. So trying to make sure that we're talking across the different agencies. And so I want to highlight again some of the key actions that are happening in Minnesota right now. In July, we adopted the Clean Cars Minnesota rule, which will require manufacturers to supply vehicles with lower greenhouse gas emissions to Minnesota and increase availability of electric vehicles. This rule doesn't go into effect until 2024, but we're working on implementing an early action credit program that will encourage manufacturers to bring more electric vehicles to Minnesota and sooner. We also are, as the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, we received $47 million as part of a national settlement with the Volkswagen company for violating emissions standards in their diesel vehicles. And so part of that, we're allowed to use up to 15% of that to develop electric vehicle charging infrastructure so that Minnesotans around the state can get around the state in an electric vehicle. So one of the priority things that we've been doing with that money is developing an electric vehicle fast charging network so that people can get around the state. So you can see in this map, the pink and blue corridors are what's already built out, and the green corridor, those we have identified grantees for those, but those haven't been built out yet. So that should be built out in the coming years. The 2021 legislative session included some major investments in climate action and to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and build resiliency in our state. It includes about $19 million for action to support soil health and forestry, about $15 million to develop and build out biofuels infrastructure and do research on advanced biofuels, money for solar on schools, including community colleges, funding for renewable energy and grid research and microgrid research. The University of Morris has a green hydrogen and green ammonia research project that received funding, and the University of St. Thomas is doing research on microgrids with that funding. There's also funding for a clean energy training center in North Minneapolis, and funds to and kind of direction to establish a planning process and an advisory council to facilitate transitions for fossil fuel host communities, to think about jobs and tax base for those communities and plan ahead. We received about $2 million for grants for resiliency for local and tribal governments to do resiliency planning and research, and to also build out infrastructure, especially stormwater infrastructure. And that's actually a grant that's open right now, and applications are being accepted through late December, I believe December 21st. The legislature also adopted the Energy Conservation and Optimization Act, or ECO. And this does quite a few different things, but it updates our energy efficiency goals for Minnesota. It allows utility conservation and energy efficiency programs to switch from natural gas to electricity, again, kind of connecting to that concept of using our cleaner electricity grid to reduce emissions in other sectors, and then to increase weatherization funding for low-income Minnesotans. And then the Natural Gas Innovation Act directs natural gas utilities in Minnesota to develop plans to find innovative ways to reduce greenhouse gas emissions from natural gas. So things like renewable natural gas, biogas, blending with green and renewable hydrogen. And this is especially going to be important for achieving emission reductions in that building and industrial sectors that we were talking about before. One thing that is kind of almost hot off the presses, I guess, is the exploration of a clean fuel standard in Minnesota. This was a recommendation coming from the Governor's Biofuels Council, as well as the Department of Transportation's Sustainable Transportation Advisory Council, to explore this concept. So what a clean fuel standard is that it sets a standard for transportation fuels and considers the life cycle emissions of a fuel. So what that means is all the way from the production of the fuel to the burning of the fuel. And it sets a standard that gets more stringent annually, and fuels that are above the standard have to, they get deficits, and fuels that are cleaner than the standard get credits. And so it's kind of a credit trading mechanism. And so this is in very early stages of there's some initial stakeholders conversations happening right now to kind of see if this is something that Minnesota should move forward with. And then you have probably been hearing lots of activity at the federal level. There was an infrastructure bill that was recently signed, and we're still kind of assessing all the impacts for Minnesota and all the opportunities for us here in the state. And similarly, there's kind of ongoing conversations and debate about the reconciliation bill. But between these two bills, we know that we're going to have the opportunity for funding to support electric vehicle charging, climate planning, clean energy transitions, weatherization, transmission planning, any number of different things. But we are still kind of assessing the full scope of that and how that might come to Minnesota and how we might implement and kind of direct any of that funding. So lots of question marks, but a lot of excitement around that. The Biden administration also has an initiative called Justice 40. And what this is that it directs these federal agencies that 40% of investment benefits from these various bills and agency funds need to go to areas of concern for environmental justice and disproportionately impacted communities. So we're talking a lot with the federal government to understand how that might play out, what those communities might be. So a lot of kind of questions around that, but a lot of excitement around how that funding may be able to support climate justice in Minnesota and across the country. And then the federal government also has several regulatory programs that they're continuing to advance, a couple key ones that we're tracking. They are proposing new vehicle emission standards for greenhouse gases. And also that's a proposal that has already been published. A lot of question and excitement around what the federal government may come out with on the power plant side. There has been a lot of back and forth between the different federal administrations around power plant regulations for greenhouse gases. So we'll be curious to see what comes out of this administration and how that might impact our trajectory here in Minnesota. So that's a lot of kind of some of the things that are going on right now, but we're also wanting to kind of plan into the future, hear from Minnesotans about what priorities the state should have and what priorities they have. So that's going to be the last section here of my presentation. So to help us get organized and kind of communicate about priorities for the state and set a vision for where we need to go together, we are developing what we're currently calling a climate action framework, working on a catchier name than that, but that's what we have right now. And so the idea behind the framework is to set a bold vision for Minnesotans, to have kind of a central place for us to have conversations about what our key strategies, key priorities for our state might be. We can use it as a tool for accountability going into the future to kind of report out on what we have accomplished and where we need to continue to work. And really, ultimately, we want it to be a catalyst for action across all sectors. So laying out, again, that vision and helping people see where they, their sector, their community, their family might fit into that bold vision. So look out for a draft of this in early 2022, and there will be opportunities to weigh in and contribute to the contents of that. We're going to publish a draft in early 2022, have opportunities for conversation with the intent of publishing a final copy of the framework in mid-2022. So to inform that framework, we wanted to kind of start with some initial high-level ideas of things we're thinking about, priorities that we think we might have as a state. So this past summer of 2021, we published online a summary of some of our thinking, as well as some interactive tools for folks to get on, look at what the state is thinking, provide your own thoughts about what our priorities should be and where we should be acting on climate. And you can go on, you can add your own content and comments. You can also respond to what the state has there and also respond to each other. You can give things a like or write out content as well. So it's pretty interactive. We're really trying to foster a good kind of community conversation online, and would really encourage all of you to get on there and interact with it, and also to spread the word and encourage others to get on and share their ideas and their thoughts on what the state has put out there so far. So this content is going to be kind of a cornerstone to informing the development of that draft framework that we're putting out in early 2022. So that's kind of providing input and ideas to more specific climate actions that you might want to see in Minnesota. But we also are really looking to foster more conversation around climate change in Minnesota. We want people to kind of see themselves as people who care about climate change, know what to do, know how they can help with climate change, and have kind of a community around that. So my dog is nesting behind me. So we're trying to foster those kinds of conversations by providing a toolkit for community hosts to have conversations in their communities, maybe with their neighbors or a faith group or people at their school. For instance, I hosted one a couple of weeks ago with my women's broomball team, and we had a good conversation about kind of what the future might look like if we don't have free and reduced cost ice rinks in the city parks anymore. Who has access and who loses access to that type of recreation and exercise in Minnesota? Those sorts of things. And so it was a really great opportunity to connect with people on something that we all cared about, but didn't quite know how to have a conversation with each other about. So the toolkit provides some questions for people to use to kind of guide that conversation. And again, there's kind of two key goals around these conversations, that having conversations helps to build a sense of community around shared sense of identity, as people who care about climate change know about it and can do something about it. And that ultimately that sense of identity, community, and connection is kind of a building block towards action, that people who have the conversations have climate as a priority. It elevates climate as a priority for them, and that that leads to support for climate action across our state. So all of that is also available on our website. And then just kind of as a final note, I don't think that many of you are educators, but maybe some are, and maybe some have an educator friend or partner. And so I wanted to highlight, we also have a classroom activity that we're encouraging folks to use. So it kind of directs a classroom to learn about Minnesota's climate goals, greenhouse gas reduction goals, think creatively about the future for Minnesota and the future that they want to see. And then you record a little video, students record little videos about that, what they've learned and kind of the future that they want to see. And then those videos can be shared with state leaders, and state leaders record a response. So we had a few classrooms do this last spring and had a really good positive experience with it. And so we are launching it again, or we have it available again this school year, and have had a really nice response from teachers about the activity. And it can kind of be adapted to different levels and different kind of classroom experiences. So encourage you to check that out as well. It's also available on that same website. And so with that, I just want to thank you all again for having me. Really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you all today, and I'd be happy to take some questions.
Thank you so much, Amanda. Just looking at some questions here. Here's one from James Price. What are the plans to upgrade the transmission lines to take advantage of renewables?
That's a good question. I know that that's something that the Department of Commerce is thinking a lot about. I don't have like a specific plan for you to point to, but it's something that the Department of Commerce is thinking a lot about. I think that the thing for folks who are maybe not as familiar with this concept, one of the challenges that we're seeing is that the transmission system is set up to bring power from our existing kind of power plant structure across the country to our urban centers and our communities around around the country. But if we have renewables, those might not be built out in the same locations, and we needed to make sure that we can connect those renewables with the people who need power. So it's definitely an important challenge, and one that our Department of Commerce is thinking about and kind of having regional conversations about as well.
Thank you. Okay, another question. This one I'm going to read a little bit of context for it and then the question. So right now there are a myriad utility provider and community level incentive programs to encourage homeowners to switch to more energy efficient appliances such as furnaces, water heaters, etc. However, with a few isolated exceptions, most of the programs either do not support air source heat pumps for water and home heating or any kind of work that involves fuel conversion, so switching all appliances from gas to electric. So if we need to get off fossil fuels in 15 years, encouraging people to replace appliances with new, albeit more efficient natural gas appliances, while disallowing all electric models from rebates and other incentive programs seems just to be not an efficient way to move forward. So why are home energy upgrade programs in Minnesota still so focused on fossil fuels? And what is the timeline for more carbon-friendly rebates and incentive programs?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. So that, going back to my slide on the eco bill and the Natural Gas Innovation Act that were passed by the legislature last year, you're highlighting a really key thing that is trying to be addressed by those two bills. So the Eco Act will allow our utilities to do that fuel switching. So incentivizing people to move away from a natural gas, a more efficient natural gas option towards electric, if it can be proven that that electric is kind of an emission reduction benefit. So the timeline is now. Those things are being laid out right now. I don't know. I don't think that they are being implemented that way quite yet, but the process is in place for us to move towards that.
Thank you for that. How does the state level work and interact with cities that have climate action plans?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think that that's something that we are continuing to try to get better at. And I'd be interested in any thoughts. We do have a program called the Green Step Cities program, where we try to support green step cities and counties and tribes. It's expanded to different levels of government and different types of government. But that program provides some kind of technical expertise and advice to local governments on how they might reduce greenhouse gas emissions and other kind of environmental benefits. So that's one way. And I think that there's a lot of room for kind of growing that. We also have some grant programs, so that the resiliency grants that I mentioned before have also been kind of a way that we can support local governments in identifying their priorities and kind of planning for themselves, because it is so, I look at the state, but the difference between what's happening in, Southeast Minnesota and Northwest Minnesota is those conditions and the impacts of climate change are so different in those different places that it really does, a lot of this have to kind of be happening on the ground at the local government level in terms of identifying priorities for those communities.
Thanks, Amanda. I'm just going to add a little bit onto that previous question. Can you just expand a little bit on how the state has been working with tribal nations in Minnesota as this planning comes together?
Yeah, so we have been, in terms of the actual planning, again, tribal nations are eligible for those resiliency grants, for Volkswagen settlement grants that we have. So trying to make sure that tribes are eligible for the funds that we have. But also, as we're doing the planning that I kind of outlined, developing the climate action framework, tribes have a unique relationship to the state, a government to government relationship that is distinct and from local government or county government. So we need to think about how we're working with the tribes in a different way than we think about how we're working with other units of government. So we have been meeting with the tribes at kind of the staff and leadership levels since the start of the since Executive Order 1937 was adopted and we started to kind of plan out what we wanted to do at the state level. As we've been developing the framework, we've been bringing drafts to our tribal partners, again, kind of at the staff level and also at the leadership level. And we had a government to government climate forum yesterday, actually, where climate leaders at the state agencies and the tribal government leaders met and talked about priorities and where we might want to go kind of collaboratively together. Because I think, there's just so much to unpack on this topic, so I don't want to go off on a rant. But I mean, the actions that the state takes has such an impact on the tribes, and so we really need to kind of elevate their voice in the conversation and treat them a little bit differently than we might treat, a stakeholder or a local government because of that government to government relationship.
Thanks, Amanda. Okay, a few more questions here. Trying to keep track of these going. What are your plans for recycling the batteries? I might need a little more context for this in terms of which batteries we're talking about here.
I'm going to imagine that the person is asking about electric vehicle batteries, since that's a question that comes up a good bit. So that's a hot topic across the country. I mean, I think that that's a thing that the state can have some impact on, but also is kind of like a national issue. And so, anything that we do produces waste. So I think that as we think about using anything, we need to think about what we are doing with that product and in its end of life. So batteries, a lot of those components can be recycled or reused. I know right now a lot of electric vehicle batteries are being used as kind of storage, battery storage for other things. They may not be good for a vehicle, but they could be good for some backup energy for other uses. But it's a challenge that we're going to have to grapple with, just like we have to grapple with how do we improve our waste system, because across our entire economy, our waste system is not sustainable. We need to be planning more ahead about what we're going to do with the products that we're using throughout their life cycle.
Great, and thank you for the clarification from the question asker. Yes, that was regarding electric car batteries. Okay, another question was shifting individual behavior on the scale that is needed to meet our goals will likely require a price signal to drive behavior change. Are programs such as a carbon cap and dividend on the table for Minnesota?
I would say, those types of things those are things that the legislature would need to do. There's some things that we as state agencies can do with the authorities and finances given to us by the state legislature, and there are things that the state legislature would need to direct us to do. So I think that those are things that get talked about at the legislature. How that might move forward or not kind of depends on the winds of politics, I think.
Yeah, that's a complicated one. Here's another sort of funding question. Could the state support local efforts directly through financial support for cities that have climate action plans? When capacity is stretched, competitive grant programs are difficult to participate in successfully.
So this is maybe getting a little bit out of my wheelhouse. So could you repeat the question?
So it's asking about if the state is able to support local efforts directly through cities that have climate action plans. So versus, currently what we have are these competitive grant programs that sometimes are difficult to participate in. So we're specifically talking about cities that have climate action plans.
Yeah, so that, I think that that's an interesting point that I don't have like a really great answer for. I think that, we as the state agencies implement programs that we get funding for through the legislature, and certainly the legislature could establish that type of funding, or the federal government. But typically kind of what we're doing is implementing a directive that we get. So we get money to develop grants, or, you know, if the legislature wanted to direct us to do something differently, they could do that. But that's certainly an interesting, I mean, I think that is definitely an interesting piece when we think about expanding climate action beyond kind of the usual suspects or the groups that have been thinking about this already. Like, how do we get kind of climate action more across the board? So I really like that point, but I don't have a great answer for the question.
Thanks for taking a stab at it. Okay, there's one that is also a follow-up to a different question. This is from someone in Bemidji. We have been using geothermal for the last 23 years in Bemidji, as it is over 300% efficient energy usage. Why isn't it a bigger part of the solutions discussions that we generally hear about?
Yeah, great question on that too. My understanding on that front is that partly cost, and then there's also kind of like a I think some challenges with retrofitting and with kind of space and things like that, but again, not something I have a lot of expertise in, but I think that the cost continues to be one of the biggest barriers to widespread implementation of that.
Thank you. Can you talk a bit more about what players are at the table, whether in the climate subcabinet or other advisory roles, to ensure that this plan centers equity and justice for all Minnesotans?
Yeah, great question. So the subcabinet is just the climate, or excuse me, the agency leaders. So that, like my agency's commissioner, the commissioner of the Department of Commerce. So that's the subcabinet. Then we have the advisory council, and the advisory council was selected by the governor to represent a variety of different kind of perspectives from across the state. So we have some forestry, some agriculture, we have a tribal leader, we have someone who works for environmental justice, Latinx environmental justice organization. We have, so it's kind of cross-cutting. We have a labor representative. So that's kind of cross-cutting. Within that, we also have a work group that is kind of under the advisory council, because there was a feeling that the advisory council didn't have enough voices of kind of with the perspective of environmental justice and equity just in the advisory council alone, because it was kind of restricted in number of participants. So there's a work group now that has brought in some additional voices to inform the framework, and they have been reading the drafts that we've been putting out and providing comments on that. We also, kind of what I mentioned before, have been meeting regularly with the tribes to kind of bring in their perspective. And then we're going to be, as I said, going to be publishing the draft. And I think that one of the big questions that I'm going to have for folks is, how can we do better on climate justice? Where are the levers that we can pull to kind of improve and make a real impact? So I think it's both about like who's kind of weighing in now in some kind of initial formal ways, but then how do we kind of bring in those voices throughout the process?
Thanks. And you might have mentioned this earlier, but I just want to remind folks what it might be the timeline for that comment period that will come out for these drafts.
Yeah, so we're still kind of developing the engagement process that we're hoping to have, but we're planning to publish the draft in early 2022 and then take comment and have conversations about it kind of through the fall and spring, and then publish a final in mid 2022.
Great, thank you. And just another one, how will people be able to access that once that does become published? It kind of opens up for comments.
It'll be on our website, and there will be, when you go on our website, you can also sign up for emails, and we post about that sort of stuff on our social media, but also always interested in ideas of how to spread the word better. And but we'll be trying to kind of get it out to our various various mechanisms, but it'll be available online for folks to look at.
Great, thank you. Okay, another question. Do plastics and the overabundance of them have an impact on global warming? And what is the state's plan to reduce the use of these plastics, especially plastic bags?
Plastics. I mean, plastics are a fossil fuel-based product, so they relate in that way. And they also are not, they don't break down very well. They exist in our waste streams. So, I can't speak specifically to kind of the percent, like the wedge of emissions that they are related to, but they are certainly an environmental impact. And so in terms of plans, we have at the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, we have waste experts who work on kind of making sure, one, moving us towards a zero waste economy, but also kind of thinking about what are different products that we might be able to use with waste. How do we reduce waste and that sort of thing. So we do have folks working on that. And then I feel like there was, and then plastic bags. I think that at least in Minnesota, that has been more of like a local government initiative. And there's, I know in Minneapolis, there's a fee on the use of plastic bags at grocery stores and other retailers to try to incentivize people to bring their own bags.
And Duluth just did that as well. Okay, another battery question. There are often tax incentives and rebates for solar or electric cars, but is there any chatter about incentives for battery storage at the household level, especially if we are going to all electric power for heating? I'm trying to replace a fuel oil furnace and upgrade to an electric air source heat pump, but all contractors say I need to have a backup, and they usually say to keep the fuel oil or get a natural gas hookup, which is the antithesis of what is needed for a climate smart future. It also highlights a lack of training knowledge among HVAC, heating, cooling professionals, which is another area of interest to know how we can get those local pros more up to date on top of all electric future. So there's kind of two parts to that. One is about battery storage at the household level, and one is about, updating some of the local HVAC, heating, cooling professionals on sort of this movement to an electric future.
Yeah, those are great questions. On the household battery piece, I can't think of specific conversation at the legislature about that type of funding, but I don't hear everything. So, so that's not. I would say that means that it's not like something that I'm hearing about a lot. So an interesting point there, an interesting idea. And then in terms of training people, I think that this is a really important question. I have run into this same type of scenario that you're describing, where you bring someone in to give you a quote on something in your house, and you're like, I know more about this than you do. This is not going to go well. So what we have an action team. So that's, again, kind of within the subcabinet. We have these teams that are working across agencies to think about key areas of climate work. We have one focusing on jobs and a green economy. And something that I've been hearing them talking about is like, how do we like kind of upskill or reskill people? Like people, people think of green jobs as like installing solar panels, but really, like, a lot of people have jobs that are kind of have a role in our greener economy, but they need to maybe tweak a skill or add a skill or learn more about a new technology. And so I know that that's something kind of on the forefront of the minds of the folks at the Department of Labor and Industry, and DEED, what do they stand for? Department of Economic, anyway, another one of our departments that helps with our economy. And so that's something that they're really thinking a lot about. And I think you're hitting on something that's really like a hot topic of conversation across the agencies right now.
Thank you. And another participant has echoed that they're experiencing something very similar, dealing with old gas furnaces and contractors and misinformation and things like that. So yeah, definitely an important topic. Okay, we have one more question and then we'll wrap up here. Did we discuss methane production and possible incentives to reducing food waste? Many communities are not set up with convenient ways for people to deal with food waste separately from other waste.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's another area. So I mentioned earlier, part of our agency works on waste. And so one of their big kind of areas of work is thinking about how we can divert more of our waste, more of our food waste and our compostable waste into compost rather than it going into kind of our traditional waste stream. So I know they have some plans and things like that. I can't speak to them in great detail. I think that there's some information on our PCA website about that, but definitely something that our agency cares a lot about and is working on and has folks who are dedicated to that work.
Thank you so much. Wow. All participants, and thanks, Amanda. We are on perfect time. That's so rare to have that happen. So thank you so much, Amanda, for sharing that great information. And thanks to all of the participants for attending today and for submitting such awesome questions. This was a really, really robust discussion that we had at the end of this presentation here. Just a note, we will not be having a December Twin Ports Climate Conversations, but we will be back in January, tentatively on the third Tuesday, which would be January 18th. So look for some communication on that in the new year. And if you do want to sign up for these GovDelivery emails and the Sea Grant webpage, there is a link that Madison just posted in the chat. So with that, again, thanks so much to Amanda for joining us today, and thanks to everyone who participated, and I look forward to seeing you all again in the new year.
Thanks, everyone.